Welcome to Off the Scale, the podcast where we dive deep into the journeys of the world's top short-term rental property managers. Join us as we uncover their secrets to scaling success, from pivotal milestones to the lessons learned through mistakes and triumphs. Hosted by Scale family members Damian Sheridan, Gianpaolo Vieiro, and Louise Brace. Off the Scale reveals what drives these leaders each day and the indispensable tools that propelled them to the top. Tune in for inspiring stories, actionable insights, and the ultimate blueprint for scaling your own short-term rental business.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Off the Scale podcast, where we interview some of the leading short-term rental property managers from around the world. My name is Damian Sheridan, and today I'm delighted to have the pleasure of speaking to Dennis Goedheid from Casiola in Florida. Dennis, I've been working on that pronunciation. Dennis, lovely to have you join us today.
Good. Thank you for inviting me. So excited to be here.
Absolutely. So we first met a couple of years ago in Miami at the Book Direct show, and where all your team had your magenta, not pink t-shirts. And we never forget you guys. I know you've built a really outstanding brand across Florida and the US. But we kind of wanted to have just a conversation with you today about your company, about you, about your journey and how you guys have scaled. So if you wouldn't mind just giving us a little introduction to Casiola, yourself, where you operate, and the brief history behind you guys over the last few years.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So we started 10 years ago here in Orlando. I purchased a small existing business with around 25 to 30 homes, all located in one resort. In the beginning, it was just me and my wife doing everything from marketing to guest relations and housekeeping and inspections and so on. And in the meantime, we have grown to 350 properties. We have 4 destinations right now. So we're still in Orlando, but we also expanded into Aruba, Miami, and Houston.
Okay. I'm going to take you back, actually, one step to when you and your wife were doing everything, and to be doing that with 25 or 30 properties, that's quite an undertaking. Just talk us through that. How long did that last for? And at what point, I guess, did you realize that wasn't sustainable and you needed to, in order to grow, maybe you needed to change and bring on new people and resources?
Yeah, it was really, really hard. And I think just like a lot of us, I underestimated it, how hard it would be. Before doing this, I had a business in Europe. I'm originally from Belgium, and we were managing around 100 people, $20 million in yearly revenue. So I thought, oh, I can probably manage property management. How hard can it be? And it was really, really hard, especially what makes it hard in this industry is it's 24/7. It never stops. You can never take a day off, especially if you're a small husband and wife team. Guests always need something, especially when you expect it the least. So I remember a point in time that I told my wife, and it was in like 6 months in, like, hey, this is just too hard. This is not how I want to live my life, being available every single day and every single hour of the day. So we either grow this business so we can hire staff, or we sell it and do something else. But I saw so much potential in this industry. It was still really growing. That was even before Airbnb was really a thing. So I stuck with the business. We were able to grow it, hire people, and now I don't have to be on call 24/7 anymore. So yeah, so much more enjoyable.
Absolutely. Well, that's a heck of a growth journey to have increased your inventory 10 times alone. So maybe talk us through that point when you realize we can't do this alone, and it's not that easy. What was your decision process then? Was it to get on more staff first of all, or was it to kind of consider the growth of properties and then bring on staff? Was it to bring on more technology? What was most important to you at that time in terms of that early growth?
Yeah. So We are 100% self-financed, so we don't have any external capital or VC money or any debt whatsoever. So for us, it was pretty clear in order to grow, we had to gain more properties and grow our inventory first before we could add more stuff. So um, and when I purchased the business from the beginning, I had something in my mind like, Anna, I want to add 10 or 15 properties in the first year and really start scaling that business. Now, that didn't happen as planned. It actually took more than a year before I signed on my first property. It was actually the opposite. We lost a few properties in that year because there's that natural churn. People are always like selling, and yeah, we just took over that existing business. So there's a couple of owners that were just not a match with what we wanted to do. We really wanted to create a higher standard for our properties, and we wanted them to upgrade certain things and get rid of like tube TVs and replace them by flat screen TVs, things like that. So we had a few after a year. I was really starting to get a little bit like not desperate, but like, hey, what's going on? Why are we not growing? But then finally, after a year, we signed on that first new owner, and from there, everything started to really roll, and we were getting more and more and more owners. Also, I think because in the beginning you still have to prove yourself. When we just arrived from Europe, no one knew us. We didn't know the industry. We didn't know the market. So people are always a little bit like, let's see what they can accomplish. And I think from the very beginning, what we have done different than a lot of other property managers back then in the area, we always focused really hard on revenue. And that was something new, I think. A lot of property managers were very good in taking care of the guests and taking care of the properties, but bookings was never really their priority. It was something they did on the side if they had some time left. And for us, we always focused really hard on marketing and revenue and generating more money for the owners than they were doing the year before.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned about churn there and your kind of early relationship with a property manager, property owners rather. At what point, I guess, did you realize that sometimes you have to let some property owners go? Because I know that's a difficult thing for a lot of the managers in our industry. We want to take on as much inventory as possible, more properties, more properties, more properties, regardless of perhaps the negative energy that you are putting in to certain properties over others. Yeah. So at what point did you kind of realize, oh, it's not worth it? We have to just focus on the quality, the owners that are not going to give us that much trouble, really.
Yeah. It took a while, and in the beginning, you just take on everything that you can, right? So any owner request, you just grant, and that's fine as long as you're small and you remember all those different ways to do things in every property. But then at a certain point, you really start to grow. You have to hire staff, and you realize, like, hey, they cannot remember 40 different ways of doing a certain thing because each owner has different preference. So at that point in time, you have to standardize the way you operate, and the bigger you become, the more important that also becomes. Then the next phase is also you have to automate and start using technology a little bit more to streamline things. And then you also hit a couple of walls, like these exceptions that are just not possible in your software or whatever you're using. So and then there's that other facet, and that is the owners that really don't want to hop on the vision and the journey that you have. They're fine with everything that they have, and they have 20-year-old furniture and grandma's chair, and they don't want to upgrade their bedding and things like that. So at a certain point, and I think that's the first thing that really happened. We wanted to set a higher standard, and there were a couple of owners that really didn't want to go with us. And we saw the difference because we never make a change like over our entire portfolio without backing it up with data. But we had done a couple of renovations, and we just saw the revenue of those properties skyrocket. They got more bookings, they got higher rates. So it was like really a proven strategy to do those upgrades. But some owners just didn't want to get on board, and we were getting complaints, and it reflects bad on you as a property manager. So those were the first ones to go. There's also a couple of owners that probably gonna have a different vision than you have, which is fine. It's not a bad thing, not on our side and not on the owner's side. Not everyone is 100% match. But you can only go so far. After a while, it really gets draining having to explain and drag some owners along with what you want to accomplish. And after a while, you realize like, hey, I'm spending like 80% of my time on those few owners. I could do so many other things with the owners that are ready to go. And then as you grow and you get more properties, it makes it a little bit easier to say goodbye to some owners. But I have to say, even up until today, every time that an owner decides to leave us, it still hurts, and it feels like a personal defeat. Although I know it's sometimes better as well for us. As for the owners, it still doesn't feel good. And yeah, I'm always thinking like, is there something that we could have done or would have wanted to do to keep them on board a little bit longer. But yeah, on the other hand, we want to grow and scale, and we cannot keep on trying and keep on making exceptions for things. So at a certain point, you just have to say goodbye and move on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's some churn is natural anyway. But if you have a pragmatic approach to it, I think it always helps. Are there any now? We at Scale, and I know a lot of other people, especially in the US, they hold your company up in very high esteem. But are there any kind of early mistakes that your company made that you're happy to share with our listeners and viewers that could have helped you along the way, and that may help some other scaling property management companies out there?
Yeah, there's many I think, and yeah, it's hard to pick one, but yeah, one of the ones that we just discussed is letting go of owners that take too much of your time. We also tried a lot of things that just didn't work on the marketing and growing side, certain channels. We realized after a while that like 90% of our bookings were coming from our top 4 or 5 channels. So we decided to get rid of every other channel. 10 years ago, there were still a lot of like these subscription services where you paid like $200-300 a year, but you wouldn't pay any commissions. But we realized pretty quickly that they were not really generating a lot of bookings. So we decided to really focus on our top channels and also master them, not just put our listings on it, same listing on each channel using a channel manager, but really handcrafting listings for Airbnb, which are a little bit different than booking.com and then Verbo. So mastering those channels, not trying to be everywhere, because it is time consuming to distribute to hundreds of channels. And if they then don't generate any bookings, it's a big waste of your time. Couple of other things is also on the staffing side. I know that's a challenge for a lot of people, but yeah, you usually, even after hiring so many people as I did in my life, I'm talking about hundreds and hundreds of people, I still don't know after an interview if that person is going to work out or not. So I don't think it may be me, but I think there's no secret around it. People can sell themselves fantastically during an interview, But in the first week, you usually know exactly if they're gonna work out or not. And the mistake that I've made too many times is, oh, let's give it another few weeks. Maybe they just need to adjust and learn a little bit more. Maybe if we give them 2 more months, they're gonna finally understand how to use the software, how to do this. And it almost never works out that way. So hiring slow and firing fast, one of those famous quotes, has so much truth. If they don't work out in the first week, just let go of them and move on and try to find someone else, because you're just going to waste more time and money and resources of your company trying to get them there. And they're never going to get at the point where you want them to be.
Well, I'm sure many companies can agree with that. I'm just going to come back to something you just mentioned before about mastering channels. So, as many people in our industry will know, we have 3 or 4 major OTAs that drive the vast majority of our bookings. If we can just perhaps look at 2 of them. In Europe, for example, Booking.com, as you well know, are a huge force and entering very much into the US now, and Airbnb. Do you then very consciously look at those 2 platforms in a very different way? And would you word things in a different way according to the typical guests that you expect to get from those channels? Would you change your photography in certain ways? You know, what would you be doing to, as you say, master those channels?
Yeah. So things have come a lot closer together in the last few years than they were in the beginning. But for example, if we start with Airbnb, they had a different way of showcasing photos. They had that mosaic view or those different tiles. Booking.com had more photos in their tiles. Vrbo had only a featured photo. So we really started changing things around so that for each channel, it would highlight the listing in the best possible way. So, for example, headlines on Airbnb were maximum 50 characters. A few years ago on Booking.com, you didn't have any headlines yet. It was just photos and I think a name. So we really started to handcraft those listings on Airbnb and making sure that all the boxes are checked that need to be checked on that channel. On Booking.com, you have so many other options that you cannot control through a channel manager. So instead of just building a listing once in your PMS and then just distributing them to each and every channel, up until today, although technology has called up a lot, we still go into each listing manually and start to get to the 100% completion rate and optimize for each channel the way it's displayed on as well people's phones as on the desktop version. And yeah, it's very time consuming, especially in the beginning if you have to start doing that for a whole portfolio. But it's so worth it. Spending that extra half hour, 45 minutes is going to result in so many more bookings. And I have a lot of people, or had a lot of people in the past that were complaining about certain channels where we were just killing it. But then I was looking at their listing, and the first photos or the first 5 photos you see on the listing is just like almost 5 identical photos of the living room or of the front of the house. And that's not what people are looking for, right? You want to convince them to click on your listing by having a real great hero shot, by writing a great title that highlights the main amenities. And then in those first 5 photos, you want to give them not just 5 different views of the living room, but all the highlights of the property. Could be a pool, a game room, an amazing kitchen, and so on. So yeah, it takes a little bit of time, but it's so worth it. I think even today, ranking is going to be more and more important. I remember in 2016, 2017, we were one of the first property managers in the Orlando area that started to use dynamic pricing. And it took a while. It took many years for everyone to catch up. but I think almost everyone now is using dynamic pricing, at least professional property managers. So if you still want to stand out and outperform the market, you have to start looking at other things. And I think the next big wave is going to be ranking optimization, doing things at scale to get your ranking up there, working with promotions, changing prices, changing photos, headlines, all those kind of things that you need to do to signal to the OTAs like, hey, this is a top performing listing. Show me a little bit higher in the ranking, so that you can get more bookings at higher prices.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a lot of man hours you're obviously putting in, but clearly seeing the results. You have mentioned tools like the PMS and dynamic pricing. Are there specific tools, if you could name a few, that your business could just not do without? And feel free to name those companies if you want, but could you not survive without any specific tools or services out there?
Yeah. So obviously, yeah, PMS, everybody needs a PMS. It saves you so much time. So we are using Track as a PMS, revenue management software. The times that you can do everything in a spreadsheet are over. So we are using Wheelhouse. Very happy with the customization that you can do there, and also all the info and metrics that go into a certain price. So that's what I love about their software. It's not just, hey, like you need to sell it at $250, but you see why they get at the $250. Other software that we couldn't do without is analytics software like Key Data. We really communicate a lot with our owners about how we're doing compared to the market, because it's no secret. I think for most property managers, at least in the US, revenue is down since our best year ever, 2022, right? So 2023 is down, 2024 is down, and owners don't really see the overall market. They only see their property, and they compare with what they did same month last year, and they see that it's lower, so automatically they're gonna blame the property manager. You're not doing your job anymore. So communicating and benchmarking how you're doing compared to the market is so important. And for us, we have a target that we want to outperform the market with 15 to 20% each month. And we need to show owners that over and over again, like, hey, the average, this is how much money your peers make that are not with us, and we outperform that with X percentage. We know we're down compared to last year or the year before, but we're still doing so much better than the average in the market. So that is a tool for owner retention that is also so important. Then on the operations side, we have decided a few years ago to start developing our own software in-house. So we have our core system, which is the PMS, but we have built a whole layer of tools around it connected through the API. So we have, for example, something similar than what Breezeway does for a lot of companies. So operational software to do inspections and housekeeping and photos and so on. We have built our own owner portal. We have a laundry management system. All that information goes into our own operational app.
That's amazing. Fantastic. Good. I'm conscious of not taking up too much of your time, but I'm going to hold on to you for just a couple more minutes, because I know you have been heavily involved in recent developments in the Florida short-term rental regulation situation. And I'd just love for you to share how you were involved in this. What was the prospect facing all hosts and managers across the whole state, and what actually happened for those who are not aware? Because we commend you upon what you did to help veto this. So please, in a minute or two, if you wouldn't mind just sharing.
Yeah, sure. I think for everyone that doesn't know it already, but I think regulations is the biggest threat right now for our industry, bigger than anything else. And the sooner everybody realizes that, the better. So we really need everyone to get involved. And Now, of course, recently there was a lot of press coverage about Florida, but we also, when we expand into Aruba, the first thing we did there is start a local association, vacation rental managers on the island, where they were all competitors. They never talked to each other. They knew about each other, but there was not really any collaboration whatsoever. And the first thing I said also to our local partners is we need to get together. We have to communicate with one voice, or we're gonna discover one day that we're extinct and that the government has decided to put regulations in place, and that it becomes impossible to operate there. So we also have been very successful in Aruba, although that doesn't get as much press coverage, but we are now really at the table in the room where it happens. When lawmakers have questions about short-term rentals, they reach out to us to get our input. We're working very close together with local DMO. And it's really, yeah, it's so important. We see great results, and at least we can prepare if some things are going to change. It doesn't come as a surprise. Here in Florida, it's the same thing. We are located in Orlando, which is one of the biggest short-term rental markets. So I understand that a lot of property managers think like, oh, we're not threatened. They're never going to get rid of short-term rentals here because there's too much dependent on it in the economy and then jobs and so on. But if something changes at a state level, it will affect us too. So we have been working now for a few years with different organizations to get law passed to regulate short-term rentals. So to make it very clear, we are pro regulations, and we want to make sure that they're enforceable and also good for us property managers and property owners. And for years we have to try to push our bills and getting sponsors involved. And this year, it was a little bit it came a little bit as a surprise on the last day of session in the afternoon. A bill got through that was not very favorable for our industry. So a couple of things that they wanted to implement was maximum occupancy restrictions, so 2 per bedroom plus 2 extra. Now that seems very reasonable, but if you know the type of homes that we have here, we have huge homes with huge like team kids rooms that sleep 6 or sometimes 8 people or more, and there's no like safety issue. Those beds are all custom made. They have good exits and safety regulations, but it's just a different type of home than what people think of when they pass a bill like that. They may be thinking about the condo on the beach. Obviously, you don't want 8 people in one bedroom there, but in homes here it's less of a problem. Other things they also wanted to do was taking away licenses with little ways to get it back, and other things like fees they would impose to get the license with inspections from like fire and building code. And there was no limit on those fees, and we've seen in a couple of areas where they're charging really like hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get inspectors out to check your home. And basically it makes investing in vacation rentals a lot less attractive, and things are already under pressure with revenues being down. Costs are going up. So we really want to make sure that we have a bill that is balanced, enforceable, and good for everyone involved.
You're very modest, Dennis, because I know you were heavily involved in this in terms of the advocacy with groups of others, and it was successful in the end, right?
It's
For the moment.
successful. So thanks to our governor, the bill got vetoed. Now a lot of the work that goes into it, because it was not just me. To be very clear, there's a lot of people. Like Tiffany Edwards and Steve Milo and a whole bunch of others that put countless hours and also money into this. But we were at a point like the bill was passed as well in the House as the Senate. So we needed to start a grassroots campaign at that point. What we need to do is get as many people involved and have our voice heard. And that's where you see the part that is very visible on social media, where we need everyone to send emails and call governor's office. It's not something that we need to do like for every bill or at every stage, but at this stage it was just very, very important to show how many people that were opposing that bill. So thank you for everyone that saw my post and yeah, send an email or call the governor's office.
Brilliant. It's a great story, and as I said, yourself, Tiffany, Steve, and others involved, you should all be commended on all your hard work. I'm going to pretty much put it there, Dennis, because we've held you on for long enough. But thank you so much for your time. One thing we always like to ask our interviewees is, what does scaling mean to you? And you guys, I'm assuming the journey carries on. You haven't plateaued or anything like that. So what does scaling mean to Casiola and to yourself?
Yeah. Absolutely. We're just getting started, right? We want to scale now further through franchise. We introduced Casiola franchising because we realized that scaling operations is really hard. And we want to work together with good local business owners that need some help to scale their business too. Now, what is scaling for us? Our ultimate goal is still building a global brand in vacation rentals, where you know exactly which standards to expect. Each and every home is going to be unique. That's what makes our industry here so great. But we want to assure wherever you go in a Casiola vacation homes, you have certain standards that you can expect, and that's as well in the property as on the customer service level. And that's our goal. So that's what we're trying to do now with adding new destinations to franchise, but also scaling our existing locations.
Wonderful. So we should be expecting Casiola to be making inroads upon other states in the US sometime soon.
Let's hope so. Absolutely, not just US, maybe Europe one time.
We look forward to it. Dennis, if anybody wants to get in touch with you and then to find out more about your franchising model as well, what's the best place?
You can find me on LinkedIn with my name, Dennis Goedheid, or you can go to casiola.com, our website. There you can find all our contact details. And yeah, would be more than happy to set up a call and talk a little bit more about what you guys want to talk about.
Excellent. I'd say, or alternatively, go to any vacation rental conference. Look out for the standout magenta t-shirts as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Dennis, thanks so much for your time today. Really enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dennis.